Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Thank you very much for joining us today, Nakba Day, which is a special day for the Palestinian people, to discuss the situation in Palestine with regards particularly to Palestinian policy toward renewed peace efforts in the Middle East. The last few months, particularly the last few weeks actually, there has been all kinds of new Middle East peace jargon re-emerging again here in Washington. We've heard basically many promises concerning a strong interest on behalf of the President of the United States in solving the problem, the Arab-Israeli problem, or particularly the Israeli-Palestinian problem. We heard that from him throughout the campaign. It was renewed most recently since, of course, he came to the White House in January. But the last few weeks, as he received several leaders from the region, we've had renewed conversations with regional leaders and promises with regards to U.S. commitment and specifically commitment on the part of the President personally to be involved in a Middle East process, a renewed process, if you will. We've heard promises of things dubbed as the ultimate deal, the ultimate negotiator, the ultimate deal maker, and promises of this sort. We've heard some new terminology pertaining to strategic partnership between the U.S. and different allies in the region, including the Palestinians. And of course, most recently, just the past couple of days, we've heard on behalf of the White House, the National Security Advisor discuss the possibility of acknowledging the right of self-determination for the Palestinian people during the upcoming trip on the 22nd and 23rd by the President to the region. In the interim, threats made during the campaign to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem has been put on hold, specifically admitted by the administration because of its potential impact on the possibilities of resuming peace negotiations in the region. And also, in the interim, of course, the meeting that took place early this month, on the 3rd of this month, between President Abbas and President Trump here in Washington, to be also followed by another meeting between the two of them, which will take place most probably in Bethlehem during the trip on the 23rd of May. Of course, these statements raised expectations sky high in the region, as you could expect. The situation, all of us know, most of you in this room are experts on the region. I do not presume to tell you that the situation there is somewhat dismal at this time, and therefore expectations went sky high after hearing all these promises, despite the fact that there are many apprehensions on the part of definitely academics, on the part of analysts, on the part of diplomats, particularly with regard to the fact that these promises remain short, if you will, on detail. But to help us kind of put things in perspective, we're very delighted today to have the right man in town to help us understand these issues, Ambassador Husam Zomlot, who currently serves as the chief representative of the Palestinian General Delegation to the United States. He is also a strategic advisor to Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. Ambassador Zomlot's previous official roles included serving as ambassador at large for the Palestinian presidency and chargé d'affaires and ambassador of the Palestinian mission to the United Kingdom for almost a decade. He was recently elected to the Fatah Council and director of its Foreign Relations Commission. Previously, Dr. Zomlot served as professor of public policy at Birzeit University and co-founded and chaired the Birzeit School of Government. He held teaching and research positions at Harvard University and the University of London. His professional experiences include working as an economist for the United Nations, economic researcher at the London School of Economics, and the Palestine Economic Policy Research Institute. He holds a PhD in economics from the University of London. Dr. Zomlot is married and has 2 children. Please help me welcome Dr. Ambassador Husam Zomlot.
There's a button I have to press. Thank you very much, Dr. Khalil. Thanks to the Arab Center for giving me this very unique opportunity. I must start by saying that my good friend, Dr. Khalil, has really tricked me. I was coming to a small little table for a conversation, and I thought I would be meeting just friends. And here I am.
A lot of friends.
Here I am, facing many, many friends, to a packed hall and to recording cameras. And in fact, this is a testament of how much Palestine remains to be at the core and at the heart of this very great city and this very great country. And it is a testament also for you, my friend, Dr. Khalil, of the respect and the power you have for all these people. We Palestinian ambassadors who come from back home, come and go. We stay a few years, and then off we have to. That's the rule. Huh? But you, Dr. Khalil, and many of your distinguished guests here are the true ambassadors for the cause of peace and the cause of justice. You remain, and over the years and the decades, steadfast for the defense of justice and the promotion of peace. We salute you, and we salute the many like you without mentioning names. And we promise to be working with you closely, learning from your experience and building on your successes. And this is one of the successes that I'm seeing firsthand. I have been breathless ever since I arrived. My friends back in Ramallah were brutal, as far as I'm concerned, sending me only a couple of weeks before a very important historic visit by President Abbas to Washington. And ever since then, I could not even get a feel of the city, how beautiful and gorgeous it is. And I also pay visits to many of you who work in various organizations that has to do with the region. I apologize, and one of my good colleagues told me during the visit to President Abbas a joke. He said, what's the best smell for an ambassador? I said, what is it? Is it Chanel? He said, no. He said, it's the fuel of the plane of the president, burning as he leaves the airport. I said, come on, don't exaggerate. But when I was in St. Andrews or Andrews Air Base and I smelled that fuel, I have to say I did inhale it. Intensely. Simply because, it's not easy to receive a president, let alone the president of Palestine, let alone at this particular point in time, and let alone who is in the White House at this very particular moment. And I was hoping that once I smell that burning fuel, I will be relaxed. But then off I go, literally, when I finish this discussion, off I go to the airport. I have a flight at 5 p.m. today going to Amman and then crossing back home to help prepare for another plane landing, another plane leaving for President Trump and his team visit to the region, including a visit to Palestine, Bethlehem. Given all this, I have not really had the chance to develop what I would have hoped to be a framework of engaging between us, as in the Palestinian official side, and between all those who work in this arena. So allow me to start by an apology for my very scattered thoughts. I have few things to say, but please take what I say with a grain of salt. I need to structure it and organize it. I don't know when, but I'm hoping in 5 years' time I'll be able to settle down and start the real job. I cannot miss the opportunity of marking the 69th commemoration of the Nakba. Today, the 15th of May, my own parents, my father, was made refugee. And he was born in a small little village called Simsim, and Simsim means sesame by the meaning of the word, because it was a very peaceful village, very close to, in the south, close to Majdal. Majdal now is called Ashkelon. And I cannot but commemorate this event in Nakba, because in Nakba is the core of the cause of Palestine and Palestinians. It all starts there and it all ends there. And without acknowledging what has taken place in 1947, 1948, we will not move ahead in the path we all desire to move ahead with. My father never taught me to hate. My father never taught me to only resent. My father taught me that he does not want to end an injustice by creating a new injustice. And he taught me always that, we must always fixate our eyes towards the future rather than the past. While we need to know what happened in the past, we need to grasp our narrative and our story. We have to always be oriented towards a different future for our children. And my father was an educator, spent all of his career in teaching young Palestinians. And I must say on his behalf today that what he has witnessed 69 years ago is ongoing. And this is what makes our Nakba one of the very few in the history of mankind that it's not a static event, that awful, heinous crime that happens in one historic, let's call it one historic event, but it has been ongoing. It has been ongoing since 1947, since 1948, up until today. It's ongoing, the land grab with impunity. It is ongoing, the murder with impunity. It is ongoing, the imprisonment of Palestinians with impunity. And today also I remember the more than 1,700 Palestinians who have been sustaining a hunger strike for the last 29 days, demanding very basic rights that are granted automatically, immediately, by the international law and by all other states in the international community, demanding visitation by their families, demanding public telephone and communication to their families, demanding medical care, not negligence. And therefore, all the stories that we have been living for 69 years have been ongoing, including the wholesale denial of the Palestinian people as a nation. We still hear Israel and Palestinians. We still hear that Palestinians are always mentioned in a context of Israel or in a context of some other issues. And today we should mark what happened 69 years ago, but remember that this dynamic situation must end. I may just want to say about the 15th of May, which is very well remembered in Palestine. And today, Palestinians everywhere in the world, inside Palestine and worldwide are conducting and convening their activities to remember that very important for us memory that we shall not revisit. I just want to say that no matter the road to peace is, without running through the absolute recognition of what has happened to the Palestinian people in 1948, peace will not be possible. Recognition of the wounds is the beginning of addressing and redressing what has happened. And I'll move from there to this year, 2017. And I'd like to remind you, my friends, that this year marks the 100 years since the Balfour Declaration that has promised to establish a homeland for the Jewish people in Palestine. Today marks 70, this year marks 70 years since the partition plan of the UN of historic Palestine. And this year marks exactly 50 years of Israel's occupation of what left of Palestine in 1967. But for us, it also marks 0 years for the two-state solution and our ability to move ahead in a trustable, reliable, durable peace. And therefore, this year also marks for us the hope that it will be 0-1 for peace, and it marks for us also the hope that 2017, as much as it brings of memory, as much as it should bring in terms of the potential and our aspiration for a different future. Now, I know all of you want to know more about politics and about what has been happening, President Trump, the recent engagement, the recent visit, and I'll share with you the following. You know, during the election period, the election campaign, I must admit that we Palestinians did not really know who Mr. Trump was. I mean, to us, he was, yeah, no, I mean, there was no political history or political engagement, and that was not easy to predict. Predictability was very very scarce, I must admit and say. And there were so many discussions. I was at the president's office, I was his strategic advisor, and we were watching, following. But I must say that he was not known to us as much as we would love to. Also during the election campaign, we started hearing some promises that were worrisome, if I might call it, like moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, like recognizing and legitimizing the illegal settlement exercise or policy, like abandoning the two-state solution. All those have started to amount to some sort of wondering and questioning what is happening exactly. And, that has excited the Israeli Prime Minister and excited some members of his cabinet to the extent that Netanyahu went by saying there is a new dawn and a new day for Israel and for international relations. And one of his cabinet members, Naftali Bennett said, bye-bye, goodbye two-state solution, goodbye peace. Yet things were not as bad as it looked. Because many people started saying that there is a cut of relationship between the US and the PLO and the PA and the Palestinians, that there is no channels going on. That was not what we felt, actually. In fact, we were part of the rule, not the exception. The rule was this was a new administration. There was a new president. The administration was not yet complete, was not yet formed in its full capacity, let alone its policy vis-a-vis its foreign policy, particularly the Middle East. There was exaggeration in that phase about the relationship. And we also made to feel the sustaining of the relationship through the US establishment. So our relationship to the State Department and to the Consulate General in Jerusalem were sustained all through that period as it were and as it should be, a relationship that is between partners. And also it was sustained through the US military and security assistance and presence on the ground and cooperation between our security apparatuses and theirs. And I have to say, on behalf of the US establishment, if I may use that word, the US establishment have kept that very strong and very important channel of communication, a life cord, if you may, of communication. That led in February, just a couple of weeks after the inauguration of President Trump, for the visit of the head of our general intelligence to Washington and meeting his counterparts and meeting others. And shortly after, it was reciprocated by a visit by the head of the CIA to Ramallah, to Palestine, and meeting our president and meeting some of his advisors, Mr. Pompeo. And that visit was very crucial and very important, and has played a direct role in making sure that the White House also knows the strength and the significance of the US-Palestinian relationship, the strategic partnership, the key we play as Palestinians in our institutions. We are a key pillar of regional peace and stability. And I believe that has contributed directly to what has followed, which was President Trump's phone call to President Abbas in March, if I remember. And I was there, and the call was significant and crucial to start the political channel. The establishment, whether the State Department or the security, have sustained the channel between the two countries, between the two establishments, but that marked the beginning. That call marked the beginning of the channel between the two presidents and the channel in the political sense. And that call has really brought with it two major things. The first is the affirmation by President Trump that he is absolutely keen and interested to mediate towards finding a final deal and a final solution to the Israel-Palestinian conflict. And I think in that call he was absolutely clear that he thinks it's possible. He thinks peace is difficult, but it is possible. And for us that was very crucial and important, because we also believe that peace is possible. It is not something that is a mirage or unattainable. It is attainable should sufficient political will exist. And the second was his invitation, President Trump's invitation to our president to visit Washington, which came only 10 days ago. After the call, President Trump asked some of his senior advisors to go and visit Israel and Palestine. Mr. Jason Greenblatt was there just shortly after the call. And his visit was very successful, actually. Successful because he was able to not only meet our president, not only see some of the senior advisors of the president, some of the key players in our society, but also, actually, Mr. Greenblatt has managed to and has been able to visit and discuss the issue with various representation of the society. He went to a refugee camp next to Ramallah al-Jalazon. He met some of the youngsters there. He had dinner in Bethlehem with our youth. He invited people from Gaza and listened from them. I think his ability to also see the human side was very appreciated by us, very much appreciated by us. But because often peace is done in abstract. Often it's about, it's about words and numbers and statistics rather than the human being and the aspirations and the grievances and the hopes. And I think that was received very positively by us. And, then came the visit. And, I'm sure there are so many other factors that have played into that engagement. But in our humble opinion, it is first and foremost the ability of the U.S. establishment, the ability of, am I allowed to use the term deep state? No, I'm not. Huh?
We're quite familiar with it.
The ability of the establishment of the U.S. that has the institutional memory, that knows the partnership, that knows the significance of our relationship, its ability to intervene early on and feed in the White House, in our opinion, was the crucial factor behind this early engagement. And we believe that they delivered the right message. They said, this is a pillar. Our relationship to the Palestinians and to the political representation of the Palestinians is a major pillar. Our mutual commitment and investment has been going for years, and this is an arena we must attend to. I believe that it was conveyed that about our partnership, our role in the stability of the region, and how positive and assertive that message was from the establishment about the Palestinian side being ready for actually making the deal. Now, then President Abbas's visit here from the 1st to the 4th of May, and I can, without going into details, I think that visit has achieved 5 main sort of achievements. The first was confirmation. It has been confirmed to us during that visit, President Trump's desire and will to intervene, to make peace. His will was very clear. His decision to actually pursue that path and try to present some sort of a mediation between the two sides was clear. The second is the ability that we clarify clearly, credibly, our position and how we see things and present the accumulated knowledge we have about the situation, and also present the commitments we have made and we have sustained for all these years, how much it's our skin in the process and in making sure that there is a different future. Thirdly, also solidifying our bilateral relationship. Not everything is about the trilateral relationship, not everything about Israel-Palestine. We do have a bilateral strategic relationship with the United States of America. It has been ongoing for more than a quarter of a century. And it is crucial that some of our efforts focus on how do we make sure that relationship stands on its own. And I think there is so much between us and the U.S. that relationship must always stand on its own. And I think that's what also caused the early engagement between the U.S. and Palestine. And third or fourthly, really a good chemistry, if I may use the term, a good chemistry and trust-based relationship has been formed between the two presidents and the two men. I bear witness to that chemistry and to that comfort. Our president is an old statesman who is always capable to convey a message of seriousness, of commitment, and of focus on how do we change the reality and how do we bring a different tomorrow. No scoring of points, no blame game, no list of complaints. It's always about our commitment and our ability to bring together a different future. And I think that has gained him that very immediate and spontaneous relationship with the American president. And of course, through that visit, it has helped us to reintroduce the Palestinian issue squarely and forcibly on the Washington table and on a global level. You know, it was the talk of the town. All these cameras is another example of how much we have been suffering for some time, the attempts to marginalize the issue of Palestine because there are so many other issues. And therefore, this has helped reintroduce the issue in a way that it should have always been on the table of international and American decision makers. And, you know, I'll tell you, it's just the beginning. We don't want to read too much into it. But President Abbas has said to President Trump in English, you know, he spoke in Arabic during the press conference. President Abbas spoke in Arabic. There was one last sentence that he said in English. He said, "Now, Mr. President, with you, we have hope." That sentence came from the heart. It did come from the heart. And actually, it was not part of the script. I know it was not part of the script. It was not part of the script. The script was all in Arabic. He said it spontaneous. He said it off the top of his head. He said it from his heart. You know, we do have reasons to be optimistic, and we do have reasons to be determined to walk ahead on this path, despite the fact that we have some experience with previous attempts, and we have to keep vigilant, not repeating the same mistakes. Otherwise, Einstein will be mad at us if we do the same mistakes and expect different results. But let me very quickly say what was our position that was clearly conveyed to President Trump and to the world. Number one, we believe that the most possible and the best way for peace to materialize is the two-state solution. We said that not because this is a Palestinian demand. We reminded many people here and beyond that actually this was a condition by the US and by the international community on the Palestinians. A very painful condition to concede 78% of our land for the sake of peace. That concession, painful it was also crucial for the cause of peace. Crucial. We also reminded that our strategic option being the two-state solution is that because the alternative, Mr. President, which you mentioned in the press conference with Netanyahu, the alternative one-state solution, it's either a one-state solution that will see a democratic, egalitarian, one-man, one-vote state, as you may have meant it, which we believe Israel will reject wholeheartedly, or it would be the status quo of full-fledged apartheid and discrimination and wholesale denial, which we will wholeheartedly reject. And this is why we believe that the two-state solution is the way forward as far as the grand deal, the ultimate deal is concerned. And we are the ultimate partners should you want to seek the ultimate deal. And we also explained that what we mean by the two-state solution is not a mini-state or a state minus or all these terms. We mean full sovereignty over the 1967 borders. Full sovereignty over the 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem the capital of the state of Palestine, with self-determination the pillar of our national rights. By the way, sometimes when you are clear and credible, your counterpart appreciates it. It's not when you mince your words. We don't mince our words. We are only representative of a nation that this is the equilibrium, the national equilibrium of our nation. We also explained that this does not mean we should not deal with all other historic and major issues, chiefly among them the issue of the refugees. More than half of our nation are refugees, including myself and our president. And in no way, if we want to seek the ultimate deal, in no way, if we want to strike a final deal, we can brush half of the nation under the carpet. Doesn't work. We want a real final deal. We want a real final deal. A deal that sees the aspirations the real aspirations, the righteous aspirations, the legitimate aspirations, and grievances of people addressed and redressed. No issue will be out of the table. No. We understand all the discussions and the, cautioning us against some issues. We do understand. But our position has to be made clear that what we mean by a final deal is a deal that does not leave anybody behind. Anybody behind. We don't want to leave anybody behind. And it's possible. It's possible. And Israel could stay where it is within a very secured borders and neighborly relationship. We are not talking about. And our flexibilities must never be misunderstood or mistaken as a way to legitimize the illegalities. Like land swap. So now the Israeli government tells us, why are you complaining about settlements? We are building in the areas we will swap. Told you who? Said who? No. Now, from there, I'd like to touch upon our president's remark at the end of that press conference. Why are we relatively hopeful? Why are we focused at this point in time to invest all that we have and to help President Trump and to support his efforts? Because number one, the president is really personally committed to this. Number two, because he is a non-political person, it might actually, once and for all, and finally, disrupt what I would call the peace industry. Disrupt this modus operandi that has been happening for all these years. Should I explain, Dr. Khalil, the peace industry and the peace business? Should I give you some markings, some makings of that industry? Lasting process rather than lasting peace. The industry was so keen to make the process last. Maybe this is a fresh blood we are having now. The industry was so keen to be Israel's lawyer rather than a mediator between two allies of America, two friends of America, two partners of America. Rather than always of this industry, the starting point is what President Kennedy said once. What is mine, and what is yours is negotiable. Ya salam. Nice. Means nice. Really nice. And this has been the logic for years. And that's exactly why we have miserably failed to make peace. That's the reason. And what else should I mention? That we Palestinians have to prove state-worthy. We have to prove prepared. We should be prepared. Prepared for what? For our natural rights? For our birthrights? We are prepared. That we are asked to protect our occupier while there is an occupation, which we do, by the way. And the list goes on and on. Economic ease, regional approach, which we have. We have the Arab Peace Initiative. Outside in. The problem is always in the react of Palestinians rather than in the act of the occupation. Incitement. I have 5 minutes.
3.
I have 5 hours worth of.
You're welcome to come back.
No. But we see this disturbance of the peace industry to be an opportunity. Enough. Number 3, President Trump has already appointed his closest advisors and family members to lead this. This is also a sign of seriousness and commitment. Yes, they may have not been exposed to the Palestinian and the Arab side of the story. Yes, they may have been affected through the years by the Israeli narrative. That's fine. Our task now is to expose them to the other side of the story. And I think we are doing it, and I believe that they are open, and I believe they are attentive, and I believe we have a long way to go together. But also President Trump's openness for the US establishment, for the long-held relationship, for all these institutions, be it political, official, or security, to feed in the process. And I tell you, they are feeding in the process, crucially. And, you know, the holding back from some of the promises, the re-examining of the situation, what works, what serves the cause of peace, and what doesn't, is another sign of seriousness and of investing in the peace process. And the approach so far, there is no approach, there is no mechanism, there is nothing, by the way. We did not discuss or agree on exactly what would be the way forward, but so far, the US administration is engaging the two sides separately. Let me say all sides, not only the two sides, including the region, separately. And this is a good approach to keep listening, learning what is happening exactly, absorbing. We believe this might be the right approach. Putting everybody together around the room, as it was discussed only a few weeks ago, might be a little bit too early for the process. I'd like to end by saying the following. In our opinion, the success or failure of this very noble mission of making peace in the Middle East is going to depend on three things, primarily, among other things. The first is the ability of the US to really play the role of the mediator and to place itself right exact distance between the two sides. Because both of us are friends of the US. The business that has gone on for many, many years of really, taking the Israeli ideas and repackage it and present it to us does not work. It didn't work. We have hopes that President Trump will keep the same distance from the two parties. Number two, and we are allies of the US, and we are key to the US interest. And we demand and we expect to be treated as such. Number two, understanding the Palestinian situation a bit more, appreciating that we have politics and we have national fronts, understanding some of our dynamics and the way we manage it, understanding that our offer in 1988 that was formalized by the recognition of the State of Israel by the PLO in 1993 was the maximum we could have offered and the minimum we could accept. Realizing that we Palestinians are not asking for anything less of making sure that Israel will be secure and will have a future that will see it as an integral part of the region. We mean it. Our recognition of Israel is genuine, is real. There is so much we can benefit from that neighborly relationship. But it is about time not to talk about Palestinian side of the story, but to talk about the third and the last, which is, always allowing Israel to be above the law, immune. This does not bring peace. This does not bring peace. Blocking us from nonviolence and peaceful resistance does not bring peace. When one of our children say something on TV by despair, the problem is not the act of incitement. The problem is the act, and the source of incitement is military occupation, is the whole soul denial. When we provide for the hundreds of thousands of families for our prisoners, this is not in any way or another encouraging violence. This is the exact opposite. The exact opposite. Understanding the Palestinian reality is a task that is required. And I feel and I believe ever since I arrived to Washington that our side of the story, as if, Doctor, we have a button we can press. We have no politics, we have no nation, we have no parties, we have no consideration. It's all about incitement. I assure you, and I will be sending you some studies from the US, from the UN, that do we incite against Jews? No, we don't. We don't. As a Muslim, I tell you, I was raised to believe in Judaism. I was raised of the Jewish connection to Jerusalem. I was raised. The Quran is all about Judaism and Christianity. And, you know, I say it and I say it from my heart. Palestinian Jews and Palestinian Christians are part of who I am as a Palestinian Muslim. We have zero intolerance, and our history is full of a society that is a model of diversity and tolerance. We are so proud to be a society able always to bring the best in each other. Throughout the years, do we incite against the Israelis? No, we don't. But we incite against Israel's expansion. We do. It's our obligation, and it is your obligation. We do not incite against Israelis, but we incite against Israeli soldiers and settlers. It is our responsibility to incite against illegality. And then it all becomes about the incitement, not about the occupation, the wholesale human rights violations, the besiegement of people. I think I have said so much, but I would like to say one last thing to Naftali Bennett, because this morning I received one of the news that Bennett, addressing President Trump, he said, there will never be a Palestinian state. Absolutely. Bil-mutlaq, absolutely. I just want to tell Naftali Bennett, I promise you, Mr. Bennett, there will be a Palestinian state. There will be a Palestinian state. And there will be peace in the Middle East. And our region is going to go back, as it always has been, a bridge between East and West. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Zomlot, for the valuable and rich presentation of the description of the Palestinian position, and it definitely gave us a dose of reality in terms of what's possible and what needs to be done before we could get to a position of hope and realism in this very difficult conflict. Let me suggest to you that despite the fact that the ambassador is in a hurry to catch his plane, he generously agreed to take few questions. And there are cards on your tables. If you could please, once you have a question, identify yourself and pass it on or raise your hand. Staff will pick those cards up and bring them to me, and I'll be more than glad to read them. While they're being gathered, let me start with the first question. Naftali Bennett was not the only one in the news today, and I'm just curious. Supposedly, your partner in this endeavor of peace in the Middle East is the Israeli government, yet we have a Justice Minister, Ayelet Shaked, this morning quoted in Ynet electronic publication or newspaper saying essentially the following: the differences between us, in other words, Israel and Palestine, are so great, too great. There is not going to be a Palestinian state established within the Green Line. Israel must stand for its own interests, not hand Judea and Samaria to the Palestinian National Authority or Hamas, end of quote. If you don't mind commenting on that statement while I regroup, and would you like to take over the podium again and answer from here? And I'll be reading the questions seated right here for you. And please continue the questions, and do not forget to identify yourself, please, on your card and your affiliation. Thank you.
Will you go on for the questions, or I answer yours?
If you could comment on that one first, gives me a minute to rearrange these cards here.
Can I be brief?
Please, very brief.
It doesn't merit my answer. Her remarks does not merit any answer, really. We would like to look for the bright and the good side of Israel, the side that really wants, like we do, a different future, not the side that wants to be maximal, the side that wants to deny the others, We don't want to talk to these people or even answer them. Better to disregard them totally. But unfortunately, Ayalette Sheikh, it represents a very strong side of the government, the existing government. But we are hopeful that the majority of the Israeli society remain to wanting a different tomorrow. Even the polls suggest that 70% of the Israelis would want to see a two-state solution. So without going into details, we heard so much worse from this minister and others. Very, very racist remarks. Let's not waste our time with it.
All right, thank you. The first question is from Josh Rogan from the Washington Post, who wants to test the limits of diplomacy by asking you, do you think the Trump administration really has a plan for Middle East peace? If so, do you know what it is, and can you please tell us?
You know, what's the name of my good friend from Washington Post?
Josh.
Josh. What is Josh? Hi, Josh. You know, Josh, we have had so many plans, and it never worked. So perhaps if we start without a plan, it might work.
All right, Saeed Arakat, Al-Quds, with
I'm sorry, before Saeed. And you know, Josh, all these plans go back from 1991 and the Washington Institute and all the plans and all the studies and all the policy papers. Read them again, Josh, and you will find out they were a major reason why we failed. Major reason, because they have happened to frame the agenda in a way that was exactly in the opposite direction of peace. An agenda that wanted to create and build and sustain a process that was designed to prevent the outcome. How is that? A process designed to prevent the outcome. So I am even happier that we don't have a plan yet.
Saeed Arakat, Al-Quds, with the notion advocated by National Security Advisor McMaster alluding to the right of Palestinians to self-determination, do you expect President Trump to call for the two-state solution while he's on his visit?
I don't know. We don't know. We don't have the what President Trump is going to say in his visit. But as I said in my earlier remarks, Saeed, we made absolutely clear to our counterparts here, our president made absolutely clear that the way ahead and the path ahead for us, not because we want to, but because this is what peace wants, so what peace requires, is the two-state solution, is the 1967 borders, is Jerusalem shared according to international law on the 1967, East and West, and that the right of self-determination for the Palestinians is the one right that we will always cherish and struggle for and want to be materialized. And so far, humanity did not invent, Saeed, any other form for the materialization of the right of self-determination except statehood. So yes, this is our position. It was relayed. I don't know what would be the position of the US, but we hope that our message that was not a message on behalf of Palestinians, it was a message on behalf of peace, was heeded and was listened to.
Durgam from IPS, to what extent will security coordination affect Palestine-US relations? And could you comment on the nation-state bill recently passed by the Knesset?
Security coordination is not something that we do only for the sake of Israelis, even though we do it for that sake. But also, this morning I was reading in the news that there was an Israeli civilian riding his car, putting on his navigation his final destination, and he found himself in Area A, found himself in Palestinian areas. One of our police saw him, stopped him. I think he served him tea, and then they put him back. This is our ability as two societies, our ability to really work hard together and work hard to make sure that we mutually gain from a stable situation is a Palestinian interest. And it is part and parcel of our liberation strategy. We understand it's unfair. We know it's unfair. And we know it has never, ever been asked or requested by any other in the history of humankind. I mean, think about it. Think about this whole logic of security coordination, i.e. we are expected. Israel is the only country ever that seeks protection by and from the victim. By and from the victim. So the 260 nuclear warheads, the fourth biggest air force in the world, supported, the list goes on, wants to be protected by the victims and wants to be protected from the victims. Yet, the victims do it. And we do it with excellence because we believe in it. We believe in it. We want to untooth. We want to take that argument away. Your security and our security is intertwined. Thank you, sir. You will never be secure alone, and we will not be secure alone. The problem is, so far, some Israeli smart, without saying the other word, keeps pocketing these things, getting comfortable on the status quo and not reciprocating. Yet we will keep doing it.
Jihan al-Husseini al-Hayat, what about the action of President Abbas against Hamas and the impact of that on the population of Gaza?
Hamas is not an issue that has to do with Israel or anybody else. Hamas is a Palestinian national domestic issue. And it should remain so. There is one Palestinian representation that is legitimate, uncontested by the entire Palestinians. That is the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO. I stand here as they call me in the US the chief PLO representative. The PLO is what represents the Palestinians. We remain as a PLO ready to engage the US, engage the world to find a final deal. For Hamas issue, it is internal, and we have made our position very clear, and we have made some successes. It's not yet where we want it to be, but there is a long but needed path towards reconciliation.
Paul Shinkman, US News. Netanyahu said he believes Israel is more popular than ever with Arab governments like Egypt and the GCC. What effect does this have on your cause?
We don't mind a very good relationship between Israel and the Arab world ex ante, i.e. that peace will be the bridge and the way to really neighborly relationship, and that Israel finds itself in a region that recognizes it. The issue with the regional approach and the relationship between Israel and the Arab world is it the entry to peace or is it the blocker to peace? Is it going to contribute to peace, or is it going to actually be another reason why peace is not possible? In our opinion, what Netanyahu means by this and the Israeli government is that they want the fruits of peace before actually putting the seeds and irrigating it and paying the attention to the tree. They wanted the Arab Peace Initiative being implemented from Z to Y, i.e. from Z to A, i.e. starting normalization. They want the few leverages Palestinians we have, which is that if Israel makes peace, quits its occupation, it will normalize its relationship with 57 Arab and Islamic states. Its flag will be flying from Islamabad all the way to Morocco and what have you. That is our incentive for peace. Now, Israel is trying to take that incentive for peace from us and argues that there is a relationship. Let me say very clearly, there is no such a thing as the exaggerated story says. The Palestinian Arab position is solid, waterproof, like a rock. Every day we coordinate, including yesterday in Amman, including tomorrow in Amman, at the summit level and foreign ministers level. The Arab summit in Jordan, the recent one, was absolutely categorically clear about the Arab position vis-a-vis Palestine. Politics can come and go, but as far as the Arab streets, it's genetic, and it has to do with their culture, their history, their civilization. So there is very small maneuver for changing that relationship. And we hope that Israel will not miss the opportunity of 57 Israeli flags flying in the region.
Okay, Brianna, FHI, what will it take from your perspective for Israeli leadership to engage in a real peace effort?
Say that again, sorry?
What will it take for Israeli leadership to really engage in a real peace effort?
Doing what we did 25 years ago, starting by recognizing the other, starting by recognizing what happened in 1948, and then recognizing the military occupation of the 1967 borders, recognizing the state of Palestine, and then I tell you the rest will be easy. Reciprocation, just reciprocate. Reciprocate the recognition, because you can never get to final destination if you don't decide the final destination. We have to define the final destination and then drill backward.
Could you clarify your position on the right of return? Dave Pollack from the Washington Institute.
It's not my position, it's our position. This is our position. The Palestinian refugees have been, according to all international resolutions, all international studies, have been forced out of their homes. At gunpoint, some of them. Shelled, massacres has happened. Ethnic cleansing has been, or have been very well reported and documented, including by Israeli academics. And this is an issue that needs to be redressed and solved. Now, we understand that there are more than 6 million Palestinian refugees, but there are international standards for resolving such issues. International standards. Look what happened in Kosovo, for instance. Always these refugees are going to be given, number one, the right for acknowledgement and recognition. All this denial that 48 did not happen. Then my father was kicked by what? A tornado? He doesn't like, he doesn't like tornado, but he doesn't leave his home because of a tornado. Recognition has to happen. Acknowledgement has to happen. That's by the way, half the way for my friend who asked the question. Half of the way is acknowledgement. My father now lives in London with my mother and some of my siblings, and I think he's enjoying his life. But he deserves, and it's his right, that what happened to him as a child is acknowledged and recognized. That's number one. Number two, there are options for my father and the 6 million refugees. Options. These options are internationally endorsed. One of them, only one of these options include negotiating with Israel, which is the return to their actual homes. But the other options do not involve Israel. Why should we wait for all these years? Other options like, compensating for their lost property and what have you, other options like being able to access the state of Palestine and to visit freely. Other options including, staying where they are, but with the rights being committed. So the issue of refugees is made to be the mother of all issues, and that it will actually end up, what's the word? Storming the state of Israel with demography. It's not true. And in my opinion, as a refugee myself, I tell you, our issue is the easiest of all and could be actually the entry point to a solution. And I mean it. I mean it. The only condition for that is to be genuine and real. You cannot just forego 6 million people. And if you really want peace, you don't want one of them, only one of them 20 years down the line saying, hello, where was I? Then the entire ultimate deal will just break down.
Tom Getman is asking, we in the NGO UN community are increasingly coming under restrictions. Can you help keep us operational and able to get in and out of the area?
What area?
Palestine, Israel?
Oh, you need to talk to the Israeli ambassador, my friend. Because I face your same fate, by the way. My movement and our movement is always, unfortunately, restricted by 100 ununderstandable, unexplainable security measures. So please have a word with the Israeli ambassador.
A couple of quick questions, and we will conclude.
But otherwise, when you come to our area, I'll tell you, we'll have good food, good hummus, everything, and you will receive utmost welcome and utmost protection, even though I assure you, you don't need protection. In Palestine, nobody does need protection.
Ben Kennedy, CBN News. What kind of confidence-building measures would the Palestinian Authority be willing to do towards a peace process?
More? Who asked this question? You
Ben,
want more?
Ben, CBN.
Ben, you want more? We are willing to engage in any. Nothing is more difficult. Nothing is more difficult than training and convincing your own boys to protect the occupier and the settler the way they do. Because we tell them that this is the way forward to our nation. If we can do that, we can do all the other confidence-building measures. And I assure you, we are ready in good faith. But we have to just be cautious about one thing: that this atmosphere of talking about good gestures and confidence-building measures and interimness do not turn to be permanent arrangement. Remember, I think there are some people who mean by confidence-building measures is a permanent interimness that we are stuck in since the Oslo Accords. The one key to success or failure here is that we really engage in one go, we define the final game, and we decide how to get there in 1 year maximum. And this whole trust thing, how can you sustain trust if you don't resolve the political issues? It's the chicken and the egg. It's the horse before the cart. And believe you me, we have been there. We have tried all these confidence-building measures. They all crumble at the first political test. So as much as it's important to create a trust, I don't think trust can ever be sustainable if you don't actually end up redressing people's political aspirations and ending the political conflict.
Last but not least, veteran columnist and journalist George Hashmi thanks you for your impressive speech and asks, how do you intend to project the Palestinian image in the U.S. in your new position?
George,
that requires another lecture.
That requires another lecture, George. But I am here as an ambassador, and I am only a messenger. The first and the foremost rule for me is to convey what my people and our people want to be conveyed. I don't represent myself here. I might have different views, but whatever the Palestinian people and the leadership of Palestine want to be conveyed will be conveyed. Truly, you know, we don't have F-16 and F-35. We don't. America did not provide us with all the most sophisticated weaponry, and we don't need it, because America did provide us with another more lethal weapon that is called the Apple phone and the internet and the social media, the Facebook and Twitter. It is, because nothing more lethal than the truth, my friend. And it seems there is some shortage of the truth in some quarters here. There is shortage of the truth. So I'll focus second on the truth. Thirdly, yes, we have fallen victims, the Palestinians, of presenting our case very dry and abstract. We need to humanize it, and we have millions of real human stories. And we also need to focus on the beauty of our nation, the beauty of our land. Okay, Israel is an occupier. The list of complaints are important. It's crucial that we remind the world and America that we are under occupation. But it is equally crucial that we always mention the love we have towards our land, how we cherish our people, how much our civilization is ancient, how much our society is a model in every sense. The stories, not that one official says something wrong and then it's quoted everywhere. The real stories about the real people. The one who saved the family of a settler after a car accident in Hebron. That's a story that we should be proud of. And how much this Palestinian society has been able to be resilient and withstand the sheer pressure of 70 years ago, and still remaining standing tall, defending our collective rights and our individual rights. I think I'll have so much, George, to learn from you how to address America, but the one key word to this is the truth. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.